This is why the TV news industry has to change or more people will get hurt. We're really doing it. Why I left my job as a TV news reporter. Whew. Oh boy, grab your tea, put some whiskey in it. Just kidding, we're spilling the tea. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ashley and I'm a former TV news reporter and actress from Los Angeles. Today is kind of a special one because we are doing a personal story and a journey that I get asked almost every single day, and that is why I left my job as a TV news reporter. I've come up with 6 different reasons for you, and I actually think this is going to be really eye-opening, especially for anyone who's looking to get into the TV news industry or anyone who has loved ones in the TV news industry. If you see us on TV and you're just like, what is actually going on behind the scenes? I do want to preface that this video is not at all about an individual station. I had really great experiences with especially my fellow coworkers, especially my last station that holds a really special place in my heart. So I'm not trying to put anyone down. I'm still really good friends with everyone, but I do want to shed light on different reasons why I personally left and why other people that you see might be leaving as well, just the industry as a whole. And stick around because my last reason is a crazy one. I've also included the timestamps below if you want to skip to certain chapters. All right, so reason number 1, I will say, was career growth, trajectory, and runway. There's just not a lot of it, okay? So for those of you who are reporters or considering entering the industry, I have made videos in the past saying this is the best time for reporters to enter the industry. I still agree with that, and if you want to see those videos, I will link them above. It's the best time to enter the industry if you're interested in this career because so many people have left the industry and it's constantly changing that you can end up in a much higher market than when you used to be able to enter the industry in the hundreds market. You honestly could graduate school right now and enter potentially a top 70, top 50 market with the way that people are kind of dropping like flies, and there's so many more opportunities, especially for what's called MMJs, multimedia journalists. So for those of you who don't know that term, I was an MMJ, which is multimedia journalist. That's when you write, shoot, edit, basically do everything behind the scenes. We're not just on camera. And you're basically doing the job of 2 people, a reporter and a photographer. I was a little bit different because I didn't just graduate from school and enter the hard news industry right away. I worked in Hollywood for many years. I worked on lifestyle shows. I was producing. I was doing all these things. So I entered just a little bit differently than everyone else, but I also was bringing in a lot of different life experience than other people. I worked at a station in Toledo, and then I worked at a station in Columbus. In Toledo, I was a morning reporter and MMJ, and then I was a breaking news anchor, kind of sitting at the desk, doing different things and producing my own segments. And then in Columbus, I was in MMJ, and then I anchored a lot on the weekends, filling in, and I basically did every single shift, morning, evening, dayside, basically everything. So for those of you who know me, or maybe you've been watching my channel for a little bit, you might kind of have picked up that I am someone who is obsessed with growth opportunities. I love learning new things, tackling new challenges, working my way up to the top. And in the news industry, in order to do that, you kind of have to hop from market to market to market and work your way up that way. So you start at a low market and then you work your way up to a higher market. Now, when I say low to high, a low market is your, smaller towns. So that's a big number in terms of Nielsen ratings. So a starter market right now could be like a Toledo, which it never was a starter market before, but that's market 80. And Columbus, for instance, is kind of a medium-sized market, really good-sized market to be your next stop. And then if you want to keep going, your goal then would probably be top 20 or top 10. So my goal entering the news industry was I wanted to be a morning reporter. I thought that fit my jam. Thought it was much more upbeat and not as much crime and all of that fun stuff, and just really fit my personality. So I was really thankful that I got that opportunity to do that in Toledo. You wake up at, every station is different, but probably like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and you are just cranking out, producing your segments. You could be producing your segments literally right before you go on air. You might be producing your segments the day before, but a lot of times doing the morning show, you're also sent to a lot of breaking news. What ends up happening is you go into morning reporting, maybe thinking it's more lighter content, more kind of fun content, if you are a more kind of upbeat personality. And it ends up being, especially in a smaller market, a lot of empty, vacant house fires, some overnight shootings, some recapping stories from the night before. So you're not even necessarily producing those segments. You're taking segments that aired the night before and kind of reworking them. So it's a lot of that, and it's a lot of live shots, which again can be fabulous because you're just boom, 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 cranking out the live shots basically every half hour, starting at around 4 or 4:30 a.m., depending on your station, and then wrapping up, again, depending on your station, between 7 and 10 a.m. Now from there, some stations would then, you would go on to produce things the next day. But our station at that time, we would then work on a completely different story and what we call turn it for the later shows. So anyway, I was doing that for a long time. And then I was doing breaking news anchoring, which is where I was at a breaking news desk and producing 6 different segments every hour. So that was really fun, but it kind of just gets monotonous, honestly, especially in a smaller market. I feel like you gain your skills really quickly if you're dedicated to growth. So it kind of felt like, okay, I knew I wasn't gonna be in Toledo super long time, and I felt like I got my reps in and I was ready. And a news director in Columbus that I had reached out to in the past, I connected with her and she said, let's go. And I was really excited. I talk about manifestation in my other videos, and I specifically wanted to work at this specific station in Columbus. I think it's the best. It's the one I ended up at, which is 10 TV, and I love them so much. I will, to this day, only support 10 TV. I absolutely love the anchors and reporters there, and just the team, the producers and everyone. They have a heart for telling your stories. They have a heart for producing good content, and I couldn't be, more in love with my coworkers. So at this station, that's when I knew I was gonna get my real skill set, which was really being able to tell stories, like full stories, doing packages, because I was working the day shift. So that's more 9 to 6:30 p.m. So every day you're pitching stories in the morning meeting. So you are doing a lot of work before work, and you're also doing a lot of work after work, because you always have to have stories ready to go to pitch the next day, which is what I think a lot of people don't really understand and process. You have to be ready to pitch a story that could turn that day. That's called kind of a general assignment reporter. And that, my friends, is a freaking grind. Now, I tell everyone that when you do this job, you feel like a badass, because you just get so sharp at pitching and being in the know and building contacts and all of those things. And you just develop so many skills so quickly, and you really have to be confident, be able to talk to the mayor, be able to talk to the governor, be able to cover a tornado one day and then cover someone, potentially getting shot and killed and things like that. So you have to just adapt so quickly on the fly every morning. And you almost have to become desensitized really quickly. And I just give anyone credit, but because it's such a hard job, this is why reporters get so many jobs out of the industry. Not quickly or easily, but I think people understand how hard we work, because we just work so hard, like day and night, work so hard. Yes, technically we're working 8 to 9 hours, but we're really working like 10 to 11 hours because we're doing a lot before and after our shifts. So I was really thankful, because in Columbus, I was able to be an MMJ, but also be a reporter, where I worked with a lot of photographers. And also I put on my vision board, and by the way, stick around because I'm so good at vision boards, and I created a video about how to make a vision board that actually works. But I put on my vision board that I wanted to be able to at least get some reps on the anchor desk, and I ended up not only getting that, but I also was able to anchor basically all of the weekend evening shows for the whole summer until they hired their kind of full-time person who had been doing it for 5 days a week, 5 years plus. So I was really thankful, and it made me see, wow, when you really focus on something and put it on your vision board and make it a goal, you have to consistently ask for it. You have to consistently work for it. And you can't just sit around and think that that opportunity is coming, because everyone wants that opportunity. Everyone wants it to be handed to them. It's not going to be, but it really does come true. So I was really thankful, because I had incredible mentors at that station. I built a lot of great friends that are still my friends to this day. And I worked every shift. So I understood what it was like to be a morning reporter, a dayside reporter, and an evening reporter. I understood what it took to anchor and kind of lead a team, because the anchor has to kind of lead a team, especially on the weekends where there's much smaller crews. But I also feel like, especially the job as an MMJ, just isn't really sustainable for your health and life, because you are doing so much every day. Like your heartbeat is always just going, at least this is my experience. And it just doesn't feel like sustainable long term. So for myself and my fiance, our goals were either to stay in Columbus because that's where a lot of my family lives and I really love the city, or if we really felt the desire to go somewhere warm because we love the warm weather, it was going to be to Tampa because I have friends there, I have family there, it's a top 12 market, it would be a really great situation. No matter how hard the job would get, and believe me, it would get really, really tough, especially when you're covering protests, you're covering Roe v. Wade, you're covering a lot of shootings, you're having to sit down with a lot of families who lost their loved ones. I mean, this could be really taxing on you emotionally, just in every way. But if you have that goal at the end of the rainbow of, the next market or the next anchor job or whatever it is, you just kind of fight it out, right? You just kind of stick with it. And for us at that point, it was, okay, Tampa, because there didn't seem to be any potential anchor opportunities or potential reporter opportunities in Columbus. As I went on, I started to really question, especially kind of getting run down just by the nature of the industry. Again, not singling out any station in particular, but I started to question of if I really wanted this long term. And thankfully, I have friends who are in higher markets, I have mentors in higher markets, and I was speaking to them and getting advice on how the industry just continues to change. And basically, a lot of stations are cutting resources. So a lot of people are doing more than one job. There's not a ton of money in it. And we'll get to that a little bit later of the financials. And it's just like you have to really, really want it. And I love storytelling. I'm sure you can see that already on my channel. I'm obsessed with telling stories. I'm obsessed with people and community, and just having that opportunity to tell someone's story and tell it in a way, like that's why I loved coming to Columbus, because I got to tell those packages, which are the full stories where you have, our voiceover and then some sound. We call those nat pops. And then you have some of the dialogue, and then we're helping explain the story. So that's a package. I really love doing that. But in terms of the actual stuff you're covering, the breaking news, the crime, the protests, just everything, I just felt like in my heart, that's really not me. I love holding authorities accountable and fighting for justice. That's really what kept me going, and telling people stories. But it just didn't feel like this particular career and journey was for me. And then my friends in higher markets, in top 10 markets, are now telling me that none of their stations, and these are people who are network news material type of people, even their stations, they are not hiring reporters and they're not promoting anyone to reporters. So even in New York City, there are MMJs. And that to me is just wild, because again, when we show up and we're the reporter, having to dress up, having to be all the things, we have a camera and the microphone and the tripods and everything. People are like, how are you doing all of this yourself? And I could not imagine doing that in a top 10 market where expectations are even higher, doing that in New York City. And I also just don't want to do that. One of my favorite things about the industry is collaboration and working with other people. And I was obsessed with our photographers. Our photographers are the best, nicest people in the entire world. And the best thing was always working with photographers, because you could kind of tag team and think of different ways to reach out to contacts. And it was just so fun working with photographers. But that's really not where the industry's going. And to hear that there's just really not many opportunities in those markets, it just started to weigh on me. And I was like, I just don't see this being a long-term sustainable career, and I don't really want it, at least in the hard news type of environment. So my priorities started to change and my lifestyle desires started to change. If you were to be an anchor, especially at least in our markets, you're either working the morning show, so waking up at 2 a.m., or you're working the late night show, which is coming home at around midnight. And I just don't want to do that long term. You have to really, really want it. I was just always feeling really sick when I would work either the late night or the morning. So it's really just listening to your body. I know a lot of reporters, that work the morning show and they just crush it and they're just used to it, and they take naps during the day, or they do what's called split sleeping, where you're sleeping some at night, like you go to bed for a few hours and then you come home from work and you go to bed again. And it just never really worked for me. I was always tired. I always felt really sick. I'm not a late night person either, so I worked on the weekends the whole time in Columbus, which can be fun in and of itself because you're with a really tight-knit crew, mostly a younger crew and just like a hustler, kind of skeleton crew. But I just couldn't, it was really hard for me to stay awake and then go to sleep and be ready to go for the dayside shift, which was the next morning on Monday. So just the overall kind of shifts and everything. I think the prime job would be like anchoring a 4 p.m. show or anchoring a noon and 3 p.m. show and being able to report and also do some stories. But just those opportunities are so slim nowadays. So it'll be interesting to see what those opportunities look like in the future for people. But I really was craving a lifestyle where I could get really good sleep. I didn't have to do hours and hours of work outside of work, and that I could see myself doing long term. And I could see that career trajectory. Another reason is your limitations on storytelling. So a part of this can be really good, and a part of it for people like me can be kind of sad. So in your storytelling, your goal is to get your story to about 90 seconds. We say $1.20 or $1.30. And that can be a really good skill set to really hone your writing, to, be more succinct, to tell things in a very concise way so your viewer can just get a snippet of it, because you do not want your viewer to change the channel, much like YouTube. You don't want people to click away from your channel. So it can be a good skill set. But people like me, sometimes it would just be kind of sad because I would want to tell a longer, more in-depth story with my sources. I remember there was one story with someone who was at a school that had a shooting, and they fortunately were okay, but they were telling me their whole story. And unfortunately, I had to bring down this kind of story that was really compelling from her perspective down to 1:20. And I remember her messaging me saying, oh, wow, it felt like I didn't even really get to share fully my story. And unfortunately, that is just the nature of the business. It is no one's fault. It's not a particular station or producer. It's just how news is. People need it quick. They need it fast. And unfortunately, that can either really lift you up in your creativity and, kind of give pressure to that diamond and carve you out, or it can feel kind of limiting for people like me who like a little bit more time to tell more of a full rounded story. Oh boy, reason number 5 is financial. Talking money always just sucks, right? The money in news, I feel like people kind of know this by now. There's just not a ton of money in news unless you get those bigger anchor seats and you build up your reputation in that town and you stay there for years and years. Those anchors really, really care about their communities. They invest in their communities, and I love that. But in terms of being an MMJ, being a reporter, working your way up the markets, again, I have friends in the top 10 markets, and there's just not a lot of money. And it's not like I'm someone who needs millions and millions of dollars, because I feel people say I'm like kind of a scrappy girl, and I love, budgeting and all of those things. But I also feel like if you're continuing to work really hard and you're working your way up the system and building more skills and showing growth, that your pay should reflect that. And I'm really passionate about that, especially for women, closing that gender gap and the pay gaps. And there's just not a lot of money in news. And a lot of people, when they're getting their first market, are making close to nothing, have a couple jobs. I was a little bit different because, again, I was coming from experience elsewhere, and I also was running my business all throughout. So I knew that wasn't my main priority, wasn't a huge financial need. But at the same time, because the job is so hard, you really want that, financial return. So for those of you who are working your way up, it's just something to consider. You might want to join Facebook groups or just try to tap into what the range is per that city, per the stations, and try to negotiate your highest range and talk to reporters and talk to anchors at those stations to try to get your best deal. But I really love unlimited opportunity, and I don't think news is it right now. I really hope that changes someday. I hope that something shakes up the industry because, again, I just have such a heart for journalists. They work so incredibly hard, and their whole mission is just to tell your stories and to get your message out there. So I just really hope that people start just showing more respect and more grace with journalists. They're not trying to skew stories. They're not trying, especially local news, they're really not trying to put any sort of twist on it. But man, you can really take a beating as a TV news reporter. So that leads me to my final reason why I left the TV news industry, and that is that it's dangerous. And I think a lot of people don't realize how dangerous it is. They're pretty shocked when I tell this to them, but especially someone like me who is hyper aware and hypersensitive, I just felt like a lot of situations that reporters and multimedia journalists are in are dangerous. And some people feel different ways about this, but when you think about it, we are going to crime scenes with police. A lot of times you might be getting there before police. A lot of these are homicides, shootings, fires, tornadoes, whatever it is. And a lot of times the suspects are still on the loose. We are not armed. We are not trained to defend ourselves. We do not have bulletproof vests to protect ourselves. Some stations might, but I haven't heard of that yet. And it can just feel very dangerous. There was a young reporter, Dylan, in Orlando, and his photographer were shot and killed being on a crime scene where the suspect was on the loose and they were in their cars working. And we're always in our cars working, and we're always relatively close to scenes. I spoke with a lot of the police officers this year, and they were telling me, and higher up sergeants were telling me that even though they're on the scenes, they're not looking out for us. Like, we are not a priority. So something for managers and stations to just keep in mind is, I know everyone says safety is priority and is number one, but how can stations actually make it a priority? For me, this is why the TV news industry has to change or more people will get hurt. There's just too many people who are working on their own, and I really do believe, I really wish that MMJs didn't exist and it was just photographers and reporters, or if people have to MMJ, they could just MMJ the lighter stories or the safer stories. And it just does not seem to be the case with how the industry is going. A lot of stations across the world are cutting more jobs. They're just trying to get more out of individuals, which can create unsafe environments. One in particular, and this never happened to me in Columbus. I was really thankful that in Columbus, we never had to do live shots on our own, but smaller stations, reporters and MMJs are now conducting their own live shots, and the amount of danger, I can't explain to you how dangerous that is. Let me just explain to you what that would look like of conducting your own live shot. You are about to go live on air, you have a camera, you have a device on your camera that connects to kind of the remote airways, which means that you are live and you are literally by yourself talking to your camera. There is no one looking out for you, kind of keeping an eye out, making sure no one's around, nothing's happening. That's what a photographer would be doing. And you are also not using your peripheral vision because you are solely focused on delivering your report to your camera, and more and more people are having to do this on their own. You saw a couple of years ago, a young reporter named Tori. She was MMJing by herself and doing her own live shot, and she was hit by a car on what looked like a rainy day. That startled me so much and really sent me down a spiral. It always does when reporters and journalists get hurt in these situations, because I just think it is necessary. It is unnecessary for people to be working by themselves outside, especially morning and evening reporters when it's dark, when you have no idea who's out and about. I know a few reporters now who have had guns pulled on them. It is just a wild world out there. The only thing I can think of right now that would help solve this issue is if people were not working by themselves. So advice for any managers or stations out there, the more you can pair up your reporters and photographers, the more I think they're gonna stay in the industry and feel safer. And the product also is just better, and no one will deny that. The product will always be better with two people doing the jobs that they're supposed to be doing and looking out for each other and just finding different ways to tell the story and keeping each other safe than one person having to do it all by themselves, feeling unsafe, feeling insecure, working really fast, getting burned out. And that's kind of overall the general reason why I left TV news. It is a churn and burn right now. And again, that's why I have so much respect for the people who are still in it, and I love them so dearly. But oh my gosh, it's a grind. And that's why these people that are leaving the industry and looking for jobs in communications, in public relations, in media relations, in marketing, let me tell you, journalists are the hardest working people I think you'll ever meet, and you should definitely hire them, because the amount of skill sets that we have to have and the amount of time that we have to learn our stories and being able to talk to any single person who comes our way, it is just a skill set unlike any other, and I'm so beyond thankful for it. I couldn't be more thankful for my experience in the TV news industry and for my mentors and for my friends. But for me, it was time to move on. I've had people ask, oh, does this mean you'll never get back into TV? I say never. You never know what opportunities are gonna come your way. I'm really thankful for my position now and being a leader in communications and being able to come home at a reasonable hour and create my content and spend time with my family. But you can just never predict the future. And as I said in the beginning of my video, I am so committed to just continuing to grow. And I think as long as you have a runway to do so, you can continue to grow. And I just think that's really important for anyone who is looking and deciding on which path they have. A bonus reason of why I left the industry also was because I do have this. I still have my little online community that we're building and growing every single day. I still have the ability to create content and to tell stories, but I just get to do it in my own terms, in my own way, longer than 90 seconds, and I'm really thankful for that. So perception versus reality, a lot of people ask me, do you miss being on TV? Oh wow, like leaving the TV industry, that seems so crazy, like it feels like a downgrade. And I'll say it just comes down to perception versus reality and what you care about the most. You are only on TV, especially as a reporter, for 2 minutes out of your whole day. So the rest of your day, you're not on TV. Like, believe me when I say being on TV is the very last thing journalists think of. And that's why a lot of times we look crazy out on the scene, because we're not trying to put the focus on ourselves. We're trying to put the focus on the story and doing a good job and getting all the facts correct and making sure we're unbiased and all of those things. So when you ask journalists, oh, do you love being on TV? I promise you that the majority of people don't even really think about it. It's just our way of communicating and using our gifts to do so. I'm okay with being perceived that, oh no, I'm not on TV anymore, as long as my reality is really good. I care more about my reality, which is my quality of life and growing and learning and just really loving my actual life, than being perceived as someone of a certain esteem. So yes, I personally choose reality over perception, but some people really care about how they're perceived, and I've just never been that person. I really care about my own internal growth and my opportunities and my life and what it looks like in my day-to-day, not being cool and caring what other people think of my life, if that makes sense. I hope after watching this video, you just are a little bit kinder to journalists, because it is really a hard world out there right now, especially with all the citizen journalists and the cameras everywhere and everyone just having so many different emotions about the media. And again, just reminding you that it can feel like a dangerous place for a young up-and-coming journalist. Just have some grace with them and be kind. If you have any questions about the TV news industry, I do have a few other videos. If you are looking to get into the TV news industry, I will link them below. Please leave me a comment in the comments below. I hope this was helpful in understanding my personal story with everything that I experienced in the TV news industry and just my personal reasons for why I'm leaving. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because we've got a lot more fun in store.